The biggest change was the Premier League. When the Premier League came in '92, the world changed. There was so much more money. Clubs had more money. The physios got better. The sports science came into it. And that's when you could really push on. And people went from 10 to 20, 30 grand a week. Then you get your Sol Campbells going to 100 grand a week. I mean, I always say no one comes up and gives you £1 million. They don't go, here you go, here's £1 million. Or do you want 10? Here's £10 million. It doesn't happen. So if you're Harry Kane, if you're Jack Grealish and you're getting 200-300 grand a week, then someone must think you're worth it. Someone says that I'm going to give you that because I'm going to give you 300 grand a week because I'm making 500 grand a week out of you because it's all business.
Stephen Sulley's study is predominantly about looking at go-getters, winners, entrepreneurs and athletes. Reason being is because I feel like the mindset is very compelling and it's something that's infectious and something that we can learn from. John Salako, former footballer, used to play for Crystal Palace and now TV sports pundit. This is quite a simple story about someone that was a winner on the pitch and someone that is a winner off the pitch. It was a great conversation and I feel it's something that you're going to really enjoy. Be happy and never content.
Another week of my podcast, the Stephen Sulley Study. As everybody knows, I like to study very successful individuals, go-getters, athletes, entrepreneurs, etc. Next guest, John Salako, used to be a former Premiership footballer, a pro, played for the likes of Crystal Palace, Fulham, etc. And now you're talk on TalkSport. You're a affiliate to Sky Sports, and you've got a few other things in the pipeline, including your own podcast. So anyway, love to talk to you about the past, present, and also the future.
Yep.
Welcome on board the podcast, John, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. So I gave you a bit of a brief introduction to what we do here at Woodbury House. I spoke to you about the Godfather of street art, Richard Hambleton. I know you haven't got a background in art, but the first question I like to ask all my guests coming in here, looking at Hambleton's work, and I explained to you that Banksy got his inspiration from Richard Hambleton. What was your first initial reaction, thought, view of the story I just told you and also Hambleton's work?
Incredible story. I think in lockdown, I watched a few documentaries on artists and the famous artists, and I think the classic thing you said was, Van Gogh was, pretty poor most of his life, and then he dies, and his art is, just goes through the roof, and it becomes more worthwhile. And it's a shame that they do have to pass away to get the recognition, but that is the art world, isn't it? And it's just incredible. And I think as a young footballer, it's a shame really, because one of the things you go into football very early and you're on that treadmill, so you don't really get much of an education. You might do O-level GCSEs, but you don't go on to do A-levels and degrees, and it's a very cosseted world. It's a very closed world, so you don't really get to really see the arts, and you don't really get to experience a lot of the world. And it's a shame really, but I think if people do open their eyes, and you're lucky to have people around you that can show you and that world. There is such a massive world, and a lot of players, only find out once they finish football that there's this whole massive world of music and art and film, and it's incredible. And other things, like horses, you might get into horse racing, and acting and singing, and sort of poetry. So it's kind of crazy. I mean, I've little bit of art. We've got a few Fabian Perez pieces, and
I know that artist. Yeah, really good.
My missus loves so I tended to buy her art. But it depends what world you live in. As you say, as a guy, you probably buy watches, shoes, cars, and then art. But art is magical, really. I mean, the first time you sort of really go to a gallery and pay attention and have a look, it's mesmerizing, and it's such a world, and it really does, because I never understood it. When I was a kid, I was in football, I didn't understand how pieces could go so much and why people would. But then once you do understand it and getting into it, it becomes a passion, doesn't it? It really does get into your soul. It's a bit like music. It's that lovely good piece of art, and you start paying attention to what kind of art you like. And obviously with someone like Banksy making it really famous and popular, I can understand why that street art is so famous. And obviously listening to the story of the guys is incredible.
So, as I mentioned to you earlier when we were sitting next door, we published a book for Richard Hambleton. So Woodbury House, along with a few other people over the years, have published books for Hambleton. But I've got to say, and I'm not just saying that, I think ours is the best. It really is very in-depth. We've done a lot of study, a lot of homework, and we've got the knowledge and experience. And in that book, I've got a quote, which is, your taste in art is shaped by your education. And I do honestly believe that. I could show one person an image and they have a view on it, a gut view. So, I like that, or I don't really like that, or it's scary, or it's cool. But the moment I give you a backstory and educate you on the movement of street art and the genre of it and the affiliates and Banksy, etc., and then I show you a very similar version, you'll have a completely different take on it. And I think just touching on what you said there, art over the years has evolved in regards to like the demographic. It used just to be the big art collectors, and it was kind of a private man's kind of club almost. Like you couldn't get into it unless you were welcomed in. But now you've got investors, you've got collectors, you've got fanatics, and I think with the likes of coronavirus lockdown being imposed, it's decimated the banks. Unfortunately, we're in uncertain times where Russia's invading Ukraine, uncertain times, and your more conventional areas are being decimated. So what people are now doing, they're looking for tangible asset classes, such as your nice watches. I mean, I even heard that Rolex watches outperformed the stock market in the last couple of years, which is saying something.
Yeah.
And the art market, including specifically Richard Hambleton, people using it as a flight to safety and store their money. And I think if you are a footballer earning the kind of money they're earning today, it's something nice to have up on the wall. It's nice to have the bragging rights. I own that. That's £100,000 or that's £1 million. But also it's a place that if times do get tough, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that your money is appreciating year on, year out.
Yeah.
So that's why I think a lot of people are buying it now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have discovered art, have come into it. As I say, I think it might have been a slightly more elitist thing, but people are making money now. I think people of all walks of life are making really good money, and there's a lot of wealthy people out there, and art is just a natural progression. I think now it's opened up. It really is sad that a lot of art is not really ever shown and seen as stored away, as you say, because they're so valuable. But a lot more people are beginning to give their art to galleries and getting it on show, and so that people can experience them. You can share them with people. So, and it is wonderful. I think, it's that education of getting into things like art, and certainly something that should be more promoted within younger footballers, the arts, and especially, sort of investing in the right things and things you can enjoy every day. So it is fantastic. But obviously, look, back in our day, we didn't earn the kind of money to be able to get involved with the kind of, level of art that you'll get in London. It's just, but you can go and enjoy museums, but enjoy, lesser pieces.
Yeah.
But have them up for a reason. It's not, the days of just buying something, but go and find something you like and why you like it. And the backstory, as you're saying, it becomes more of a part of you that you've got a piece. So
it becomes a talking point, especially over when you've got friends over, family over, and they say, what's that about? And then you can go, and do you know what, as you start to describe not necessarily the piece maybe, but more so the artist and the background and the genre, you kind of feel good about it. You make yourself sound really educated.
No, it's incredible. I mean, obviously with the Fabian thing, obviously he grew up in a brothel with his mum, and it shaped and what he paints and how he paints. And obviously his father, and as you say, the pieces we've got are certainly, people will stop and say, what do you see? And everyone might see something slightly different. There's a piece with his dad, and he's at the bar, and everyone's got their backs to him. And, you sort of start with, has he turned his back on the world? Or has everyone turned their back on him? Or is he, what's going on? He's just not interested in whatever they're looking at. What is going on? But and, he does one, it's Marcus is a lovely little piece. And it's a guy just in contemplation. What is he thinking? Where, what's happened? It's brilliant. And it's that backstory, and then whatever you read into that, and everyone usually sees something different. So it is, that's why it's so special.
Well, what you just described there is exactly what art should do first and foremost. It should give a reaction, it should provoke some thoughts, and then that good conversation off the back end of it, whether you support the artist and what they stand for or not. The conversations then, I think that's really, really healthy. I obviously want to talk to you about the obvious, which is your football career, getting into it. Was it a foregone conclusion that you were going to be an athlete? Was there other twists in your life? But before I do, just because we're talking about investing, I've always been taught by my dad. He said, look at successful people and try and copy some of what they do, because if you do kind of what they do, you're going to get the same results, if not better. And obviously, yourself being on TV, I'd like to ask you, what do you typically invest into? Is it more like property? Is it more bank-based stuff? What kind of things do you normally go for?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit more old school. So it was all about property. Get on the property ladder. Got into property development. Just listening and you find you buy a house, you do a house up, and then you think actually someone offers you a bit of land. And to be fair, it is really that conversation. Someone will come up to you and say, look, I've got a bit of land here. Do you want to put a bit of money into it? I'll build it. We'll sell it. And that's how I got into it. So that was really cool.
And you still do that now?
Yeah. So, it got really, it got decent. I got hit in the crash, 2008, because I had too much in property. I had everything, really. I think I had about 20 buy-to-lets. And I had three big pieces of land and obviously my own house. So, it kind of like, if you've got, £10 million worth of property and you owe the bank 5 million on it, and all of a sudden property crashes, then it's only worth 7 million and you owe the bank, and then the bank are like getting a bit jittery and nervous, and especially you got to make the payments, and then a lot of people fall foul where the banks do foreclose on it and say you get to a position where they want their money back, and you can't just keep rolling it on. You've either got to build it, you get your planning, selling it, and if you're struggling to sell it, it just all becomes a nightmare. So that big crash in 2008 hurt a lot of people. A lot of people made a lot of money after it, but a lot of people lost a lot of money. So, as you're saying, same thing can happen in art. There's a war. If you've got your money in crypto or your money in shares are the classic. You go and buy shares, doing great, and then your portfolio crashes. And I remember tech stocks was good. We all used to... you get home in the afternoon, say what the footballers do in the afternoon. Some go to the bookies, some can't play golf. Sometimes I used to have go and look at shares, go and look at stocks. Now I talk to people, they're talking about NFTs. They're looking at, with cricketers, rugby players, football players, they're looking at shares, NFTs, looking at a bit of property. There's so many different things you can get into. But again, it's how much time you want to invest in reading up and doing your homework and making sure you got people around you advising you, on asking, is that right? It's a good lawyer, good accountant, and having good people around you just to sound things out, whether it's art, whether it's property, whether it's shares, whatever it is just get as much knowledge about it as possible before committing, and always sleep on a decision, don't go rushing into stuff. But, cars, a lot of guys collecting, cars, classic cars are, you see the lads now, they're going, Romans up the road and then go and buy an Aston Martin, a Lamborghini. But if you actually take some time into actually looking at, if you buy the right Aston, if you buy the right Ferrari, you buy the right classic car, they'll actually make money, and again, it's just looking at it in the right way and getting the right advice. So, cars are very interesting to most guys, but actually, if you buy the right 911, you're going to make money rather than lose money on it. Don't just go to them, I want one of those because they look good. Like Dele Alli here, he drove up to Everton in a Rolls Royce. He's probably talking 300 grand. And you're thinking, why is a 26-year-old driving an old man's Rolls Royce? And why are you taking it to training? It's like, come on. It's like, but a lot of times, these young lads, have got a lot of money and they just don't really think, and they don't, it's a working man's game. And, I sometimes, I'm sounding old now. I think anyone who's old school will go, hey, why are you doing that? And then people that you hear, younger people going, well, it's up to him if he wants to take it. It's just they've missed the point of it's a working man's game, and, it's your first day at training. Just take the Range Rover, just take a normal car, just blend in, just get people, instead of, it's just all this flash and bling, driving around, and it doesn't really make sense. But I always thought, if there's one set of people who could drive any car, like just a normal car, would be footballers. Do you know what I mean? Because people are like, oh my God, that's Wilfred Zaha over there, or that's Harry Kane. He doesn't need to be, do you know what I mean? He doesn't need to be in a Bentley Continental. He could actually just be like, I'll just drive it. And I used to think it was always quite nice just to have a really normal car and just blend in and not draw too much attention all the time. I don't know. So, but obviously the game's changed slightly, but...
I want to touch on that, but before I do, I want to go back to the 2008 credit crunch and banking crisis, because I remember it very well. I was in financial investments, promoting them, and 2007, I earned in that year, I earned really good money. And then 2008 came, and then my mum and dad were saying to me, look, you're in financial products, you're doing it predominantly over the telephone, and there's a banking crisis, there's a credit crunch, you better start thinking about maybe shifting careers. And I ended up changing my sales presentation, and I made it actually work for me rather than against me, and I doubled my income within a year. Okay. And I remember a lot of people around me selling the same products were actually couldn't get their head around it, and they were actually losing more money. And I actually span it on its head. So I remember that time very, very well. And you touched on that. In that time, in those certain times, including coronavirus, and even right now with the conflict with Russia and Ukraine, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And it's all about your education again. It's about how ballsy you are sometimes, and it's also about your own belief. What was the main thing that you learned in the 2008 banking crisis and credit crunch?
Well, the biggest thing to start off with is don't have all your eggs in one basket was basically it. And, it was kind of crazy, really. So for a long time, it's been coming about 10 years, really. People were saying property's too high, it's going to crash, and they're saying there isn't enough property as it is. So the demand was outstripping what was being built. So I was thinking it had to keep going. It had to be, and obviously what happened was it was the way they lent money and the people they lent money to, and the way they lent it crashed the banking system, which was crazy, really. And it wasn't about demand and product. It was really irresponsible lending that brought the market down. But, the backstory to that was obviously, you asked me, I mean, I started off, my dad died when I was 5. So, got this story. I've just started writing my book, actually. I used to think, John, have you written a book? So you should write a book. I'm like, well, who wants to listen to my story? And, I sort of thought about it. And then you hear other people write their stories. So I wanted to do a different kind of book. So, my dad was here studying, doing his master's in Nigeria. Met my mum. They went off to Nigeria, had 5 kids. He died in a car accident. And then she brought us back to England. The massive contrast, and the problem was she couldn't get the money out because we were quite wealthy there. And she struggled to get the money, but she had a friend who worked in the government. And he was entrusted with some nice amount of money to bring out for us. But he buggered off to America with it. So I'd like to catch up with that guy one day. So we basically arrived here penniless. It was, got a council house. And, so I sort of grew up, not angry, but motivated. I was just like, I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to do something. I'm better than this. So there was always this ambition. There was always drive. And I used to love sport. My mum was a teacher. She was my headmistress back in Nigeria, actually. And she used to have to give me the cane when I was naughty. But she was a school teacher, so it was always about your schoolwork. I mean, my 2 older brothers went to grammar school and they were quite bright. And I just didn't pay... I wasn't interested in schoolwork, really. I just wanted to play sport. I played cricket for Kent, played rugby, I was athletics, football. So I just played all sports, just loved it. And it's actually a crazy story. Just, we never dreamt of being a footballer, being a film, being in music, or having those kind of ambitions like you. I want to join the SAS, the Marines, or I want to be in the RAF. But they came and did a presentation one day, and you needed what do you call it, computer science. You needed your maths and your physics, and I was like, well, that's not going to happen. Yeah, that's not
2020 vision and whatever.
Yeah. So once they started talking about physics and maths and computers, I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So then it was SAS, Marines, and then I got picked up by Palace, and it's incredible. I mean, the guy, my manager at the time, I was playing for the year above because I was like banging in loads of goals for my age group, and he said, "You're too good. Come and play for my age group." A year up, and I was still scoring. And he's the one that he actually wrote to Palace, and they sent a scout down. And then next minute, I'm playing at Palace, and I'm embarking on this career, which is just absolutely surreal. And then sort of by the time I'm 21, you're playing FA Cup finals, 22, England. It's just crazy. But I think every step, I think the important thing for anyone, and I'd always say, is dare to dream. Dare to dream. I'll tell the kids, have a dream, be ambitious. Why not you? Why can't it happen to you? If you're prepared to work hard enough and put the time and the effort, do you know what I mean? If you're going to train hard and be dedicated and go that extra yard, you can succeed. And the thing is, daring to dream and working hard is you might not touch the stars, you might not play in the Premier League, but you'll end up somewhere that's a hell of a lot better than if you didn't have that dream, you didn't have that ambition, you didn't have that drive. And it's something you can't give people. You can't, but you can try and help people, and you can you can give them little pointers and little bits of help. And most people, it's the right place at the right time. If you get the right information at the right time, mixing with the right people at the right time, not the wrong people. There's a lot of things that can happen in life, and the thing I'd always say, it's not about making mistakes, and it's not about getting knocked down. It really is about learning from them and getting up and going again. So for most of us, we are going to fail, but we've got to have the mettle, the strength to try again, to keep trying. And that is, a lot of kids. I coached the under-13s and under-16s at Palace, and a lot of those kids were so disillusioned when you let them go. And I'd say to them, look, you're a good player, but you need to keep on the ladder. We can only take 3 or 4. I've got to let 10 go. But you can go somewhere else and be a player. You can go, but you've got to push. You've got to want this. You've got to fight for it. And they don't. They give up. They just quit. And then you're like, that's the sad part. Not everyone can make it. It's right place, right time, bit of luck, whatever it is, rub of the green. But look, if you work hard enough, you make your own luck. You make your own rub of the green. You kind of like, you can knock doors down. Sometimes you've got to knock 2 or 3 doors down. It takes, sometimes the journey's longer and it's more satisfying when it's longer. And but yeah, it's crazy. And sport is so cutthroat. It's so ruthless. Football is so, when you're in that dressing room, you got 30 guys who just want to play. It's a game. It's a team game played by individuals. So the mentality of it, the psychology of it is so tough, and the levels of fitness, and your body's got to work. Just be lucky with injuries. Then you've got to be in the right team, but you've got to push, and you've got to be strong. But you've got to be strong in life, and the people who succeed in life are the ones that are strong-minded and prepared to push and endure, and whenever you're successful and good at something, people go, "Aren't you lucky?" And you go, "Oh, it's funny enough. The harder I work, the luckier I got." The Gary Player saying. So, that's why things like boxing are so good. That's why sport is so important for kids to play sport, because you learn those principles. You learn certain mentalities that should make you stronger. Being dedicated, looking at how you train, how you eat, how you think about the game, and start interacting, thinking about being successful. And those kind of principles will take you into life, and whatever you go on to do, those principles stay with you, because the same principles in life are what you learn in sport. And that's why it really is so important kids play sport and enjoy sport and learn that interaction, that camaraderie, that team spirit, the bonding, and that bit of individuality to say, do you know what, how good am I? Can I get better? Can I keep improving? And that mentality is a winner's mentality, whether you're playing sport or whether you've got a trade, or you've got your own company, or you go and work in business. So that's why a lot of companies will hire sportsmen, ex-sportsmen, because they want that winning mentality. They want that, that team ethic, that passion, that drive, that enthusiasm, and that desire to want to do well. To whether it's as an individual within a team. So, you just got to decide what do you want to do.
I totally validate what you say. I'm fighting on March the 5th this Saturday. It'll be my 16th fight.
Cool.
On a league that used to be called the Queensberry League, and it was renamed last year to the Quest League. It's actually for a title as well, which is quite cool.
Nice.
I'm 36. I'm pushing on a bit, but I'm excited. But anyway, one of my main motivations is behind it is I've got a Just Giving page, and as well as a Just Giving page, all the proceeds from the ticket sales or table sales are going to a charitable cause, which is Bromley and Downham Boxing, ABC, but also the youth centre. So in Downham, Bromley and Downham, there is this youth centre as well as the boxing ABC club next to it. And one thing I've noticed is there's a lot more females going down there now. When I was 14, when I used to represent that club when I was younger, I had around about 10 fights for them. It was all just male, and now more females getting involved, which I think is very, very healthy, because it was only known as a male-dominated sport. And I still say it is today, but there is a lot more females coming through, which I think is very healthy. But also, if you look at certain areas which are quite deprived sometimes, when a youth centre or a boxing club goes down, it affects the local area. Crime goes up, graffiti, there is gangs, there is drug dealing, etc. So keeping it open is really, really important. And then, as you just mentioned, it's the life transferable skills and mindset. They can transfer that winning instinct, that get-in type mentality, or that fighter's mentality into their own business, into their own investment life, etc. So all that money is going to them. It's going to help them develop. It's going to help them home in on their skills and get them to their boxing competitions or bouts, because it's going to pay for their transportation. So I believe in definitely investing into the younger demographic. Take me back to when you did become a professional footballer. I mean, what was that like, signing your first contract for your first major team, and who was the first major team that you signed to?
Yeah, so I joined Palace just before my 14th birthday, and then
Crystal Palace, yeah?
Yeah, Crystal Palace, and then apprenticeship at 16. I was the last apprentices that year, and then they become YTS. And then I signed my first pro contract at 17. Which was brilliant, because you used to have to do jobs, and this is another thing in life. I think you need to earn your stripes, you need to earn respect, you need to have a certain discipline in your life, and I think youngsters need to be taught that. I think that's one thing we've lost, is that you did follow. So when you're a youngster, you do get a clip around the ear, you do look up to people, and you do have to earn your stripes and that bit of respect, and you come through and earn the right so when you're a kid, we had duties. I had 3 or 4 pros I looked after, get their kit, get their boots, clean their boots, pick up the kit afterwards, get the balls in, wash the changing rooms down. And I think it's important to work as well. I had a paper round, and I worked in the chip shop. I did a bit of labouring. Obviously, I needed the money, because we didn't have any money. But even if people are, a lot of the people who are successful in life, they make their kids get jobs when they're sort of around that 15, 16, 17, 18. If you're at uni, get a job. As a kid, you can have a job, go and work in a pub, go and work somewhere. Give them a grounding, so you're grounded. And, I always feel coming through. So as an apprentice, I always felt quite grounded, and then you progress. And then when you get that pro contract, you don't have to do duties anymore. You're like, oh man, that was the coolest thing. And then you get your car, and then you don't have to catch the bus anymore, and you're like, yeah, I've made it. And you get your £1,000 a week, and you're like, oh, you're buzzing, and you think, you're flying, and you get, I bought a flat when I was 18. I was going to buy it with my sister. And funny enough, that's another interesting story. I bought my first flat in Croydon with my sister, and then my sister decided she wasn't going to take this job in London, so she couldn't come in with me. So I bought it on my own. And within 6 months of buying that flat, interest rates went from 7% to 15%, and my mortgage payment doubled. I think it went from £800 a month to £1,600 a month. And I think I was only taking home about two grand, because the brilliant thing about being a footballer is you're PAYE, you pay 40% tax. So if you've got £4 grand coming in, they're going to take 1,600 off it, or whatever it was. Yeah. So you end up with 2,400. If your mortgage is 1,800 or whatever, then, by the time tax, car, you work it out. I was struggling. I was living on bonuses. I was like, we got to win this week. And I went in to see Stevie Coppell, and I'm like, I'm struggling. I'm start getting behind on my mortgage and stuff. And he's, well, you want to sign another contract? And he sort of put, and I was like, well, I don't know. Well, how much are you offering? And then my agent, you know, I'm sort of saying, well, don't just sit tight, it'd be all right. So I kind of like, you know, they try to pull the wool over my eyes a little bit, but it was hard times basically, you know, so you had to push through that, but it was, you know, it was the right decision. I think I bought it for about 70 grand, had it for a couple of years and sold it for probably around the same money, didn't make any money on it. Then I bought a house, but then you start learning. But, you know, when I look back, I think if I'd have had better advice on property or early on and things like that, you know, definitely would have stood me in good stead. But you just got to keep pushing and keep your eyes open and keep learning. And then obviously I got in the England side and then I got injured, which I think when it was my time, got injured, I was going to move to Italy, started learning Italian, was in the England side. There was an Italian side came over, Bari came over to buy me. And I can remember driving, we had Leeds at home, and I was driving to the game, and I had talks with Bari in the morning. And Graham Taylor was there, the England manager. We had the Euros coming up. We had a qualifier against Turkey coming up. And it, you know, I could just go into the game going, yes, do you know what I mean? This is it. This is happening. I am, you know, this is my time. And then my knee exploded that night. Oh. And I can remember coming home from the hospital about 2:00 in the morning, just sitting in the back garden, just thinking, so I think my sister was living with me at the time, and I think she had a packet of 10 Marlboro Lights. And I can remember sitting in the garden, I was just devastated having a Marlboro Light in the back garden, thinking I went from having
everything,
the world at your feet, to being told it's all over. You won't play again, and that was, that was kind of crazy. But do you know what? Again, I just like, I'm going to play. It's going to be fine. And luckily, you know, Stevie Coppell, who had to quit through knee injury, he looked around the world, and I ended up in West Hollywood because of NBA, NFL. They were very good at knees and operating. So yeah, I had an op there. Came back. Got back playing 6 months, knee went again, got back in the England squad. And that was the hardest. I think that was the hardest time. That second time, that was hard to keep the belief, and, you know, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be as good. So yeah, I kind of hit the bottle a bit and, you know, sort of took time out and was absolutely just devastated, and had another 10 months out. And then, you know, you start training, you start getting back, and, you know, I got back playing, but, you know, I was never the same. I was never as good again, you know, never reached those heights where, you know, before I thought I could play at any level. I thought, you know, go and get 50, 60 England caps, Euros, World Cup, you know, play for a top team. At the time, Serie A was the place to be. But, so I've, you know, battled through and got to 36, 600 games. Which, you know, I'm proud of, and sometimes the worst thing, sometimes people go, oh, you played for England, didn't you, John? I said, yeah, I only got 5 caps. You got 5 caps? Squad 7-8 times. Like, you know, people give their right arm to have 1 cap. Why do you say only? So I have changed that to be more positive, to think they are precious, and they are, you know, so, you know, they're the best thing that happened to me in my football career. So I do look at them now in a very, very positive light, rather than that I could have got 50. I could, you know, it's coulda, shoulda, woulda. I mean, if's the middle word in life. You know, it is what it is, and I'm very proud to have got the 5 and precious England cap. So yeah, overall, you know, I'd love to have done a bit more, but it is what it is. You know, you've got to play the you know, the cards that you get.
Yeah. Massive achievement, mate. I mean, incredible. Most people, if you walk down the street, wouldn't even achieve half of what you've achieved in football. So congratulations. It's inspiring stuff. You probably get asked this quite a lot. It's something I asked my uncle quite a bit. Chrissy Sulley, I mentioned she was a professional footballer, still very much in football now. You know, maybe a few years before the mega money's come into football, right? And there's so many people that take a view on it. My view is this. I think it's incredible. If a young man or female, but predominantly young men, are earning so much money, unbelievable. I think money doesn't change who you are, in my opinion. It emphasises who you are. If you're an arsehole, well, you're just an arsehole with a load of money. if you're a good person and you give to charity, you're able to do that more and help other people because you've got more money. It doesn't make you a better or bad person. But let's be honest. If I went to anyone in the street, do you want more money? And there's no catches. I'll just give you more money today, free. Would you take it or not?
Yeah.
Every single person, unless you're a bit nuts, would probably say, yes, of course I would. Because money gives you more options, right?
Yeah.
So, being a footballer back then in comparison to now, your view on the money in the game, and what was the most amount of money you were on, if you don't mind me asking, when you was at your height of your career, John?
So we would have gone. I can remember I signed a contract. So I think my first decent contract was £1,500 a week. So you got £1,000 a week in your wages, and you got £500 sign-on fee. So whatever that equated to, 25 grand or whatever. So that's how they always break it up in football. You get some of it wages, you get some of it sign-on, and they pay you that half yearly when they get the TV money. So the biggest thing that happened, then I went on to, so I think when I played in the FA Cup final in 1990, I was on £1,500 a week. Then I went from there to, I think, to £6,000 a week. And then the most on was 10 grand a week.
That's lovely.
Yeah. So you get bonuses, and that was decent money back then.
10 grand a week was with who?
So that would have been with Coventry. So I went there. I was going to sign for Newcastle, going to sign for Kevin Keegan, and that didn't happen. I can remember I nearly signed for Celtic actually, and asked for 10 grand a week, and they said no, they couldn't pay that. And then even Kevin didn't want to pay that at Newcastle. So, but that 10 grand a week would have been 7.5 grand wages and 2.5 grand appearance money. So if you played, you got your full quotas. Which do you know what? I don't know why they don't do that more. They should incentivise contracts from a football point of view. If you can get away with it, they do, but largely you can't. So, I played in an era where, and obviously my issue was I got injured, and then I was, people have to want you, and you have to be progressing. So, although I left Palace, I went to Coventry, and then I went to Fulham, and Fulham were in the first division. So, that was a funny time. That was, we sort of went to Coventry, had a couple of kids, and it all got a little bit. I think sometimes you just lose sight of what you really should be doing and make a proper, financial decision. Sometimes your decisions are made by, sort of family issues or whatever's going on with your life at the time. You look back and think, do you know what? I probably should have stayed, signed another contract, and then, make your decisions. But, I wanted to come back to London. You make your decisions. But for me, I was, then you start on that downward trajectory. Although I went to Charlton in the Prem, I didn't play. Then I played at Reading, and then 1 year at Brentford. So, but, you're at a level that you just think you're not going to, go and demand big money. And the biggest change was the Premier League. When the Premier League came in 92, the world changed. There was so much more money. Clubs had more money. The physios got better. The sports science came into it. And that's when you could really push on. And people went from 10 all of a sudden to 20, 30 grand a week. Then you get your Sol Campbell's going to 100 grand a week, and it just goes crazy. It just gets nuts. And obviously, there was, I don't know, it was it the Bosman ruling? Jan Bosman. I don't know so. What happened was at the end of your contract, they had to sort of keep paying you till you got another club, and they sort of had you had some sort of recourse from the club, but what the Bosman ruling did, he went to a court and saying he wanted to be a free agent after his contract ran out. So basically, if he let his contract run down, then he could go and negotiate one over there with no signing on, no fee for you and get more money. And that was a crazy one. And I don't really think that helped players in general, but the better players and the bigger players, it gave them a lot of power to run down contracts and earn stupid money. So I'm a £30 million player, you haven't got to pay that. I want that in wages. Agents, the game just changed. So the Premier League started, and the Bosman ruling was crazy in the way football works. And the agents, it's a wild west, and it's crazy. They've never got hold of it. The PFA have never got hold of it, and for some reason they allow this real snake's cesspit that goes on with agents and the way they exploit football players is really quite disgusting. But anyway, that's another podcast, I think. But so the money. I mean, I always say no one comes up and gives you £1 million. They don't go, here you go, here's £1 million. Or do you want 10? Here's £10 million. It doesn't happen. So if you're Harry Kane, if you're Jack Grealish, and you're getting 200-300 grand a week, then someone must think you're worth it. Someone says that I'm going to give you that because I'm going to give you 300 grand a week because I'm making 500 grand a week out of you because it's all business. Daniel Levy's a businessman. Everyone's a businessman. They don't operate. But you've got to be successful. You've got to come, you've got to deliver, and you've got to have something to offer. You've got to have a product. There's a lot of players that I think the funny thing is they get to a certain level and then they get the big money and then don't deliver for what they're paid. And that's very sad. But for the lads that are playing well, if you're a Ronaldo, if you're a Messi, for the top players, it's the marketplace. It's the going rate. So, Lewis Hamilton's earning £50 million a year or £100 million a year. If you're an actor, you're earning big money. If you're in the city, traders are earning ridiculous amounts of money. I don't know, sometimes they look at footballers and go, footballers earn a lot of money. Why? Because it's a working man's game. It's the people's game. So the people are plumbers, electricians, builders that go to football. They're on normal money. So when they pick up the Sun, they go... Do you remember when they changed it? They didn't go, he earns £1 million a year. They go, he earns 100 grand a week. When you change it to 100 grand a week, oh my God, that's a lot. So footballers, because it's a working man's game, it just has that feeling that they shouldn't be on that kind of money and they don't deserve it. But the game is massive. Football, the Premier League's our biggest export in this country. It's global. The magazines, the guys selling hot dogs, the circus, the TV, the radios, the podcasts, everything that surrounds the Premier League football is just an enormous machine that is so incredible. And so for these players, for people to sort of say, they earn too much money it's ridiculous. It's a very short career. They've got to maximise what they're earning, but the product and what they're delivering is incredible. It's incredible now. And as I say, the Premier League's global. You go to Tottenham or Arsenal or Chelsea or Liverpool, there's foreign people flying in from around the world to come and watch our football, to come and be part of that. And the money, the revenue that is generated from delivering the Premier League around the world is nuts. And it's just going to keep going up.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There is this resentment that I just don't get about players earning money. They are young kids. And I think something's got to be done about more of an educational path. Only 1% get through. With all the foreign players coming in, you get all these kids in academies with the dreams, the hopes and the dreams. They're the ones I feel sorry for. But only 1-2% get through, make it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's dream come true land. And, they're going to earn money because you've got to pay the going rate. Clubs are getting 120, 140 million a pound just to be in the Premier League. Then you've got sponsors. Then you've got all the advertising and, all your commercial bits and the daily commercials on a match day, the revenues they can generate from the corporate hospitality and block. So it's a massive machine. And the players are just getting a fraction. Players are getting their rewards for that. So the worst question I ever get asked is, would I love to be playing now with the money? Well, I can't change time. I can't say, it's no point me thinking about it. I love the pitches. I love the glamour and the glitz. I like the fact that, I was a skillful player. So, I got kicked all over the place. So I'd like it now that people get booked and sent off for just looking at you. So I'd have loved that. I think I'd have benefited from that. I think I'd have enjoyed playing now without a doubt. But I'd love, the money, obviously, but it's not going to happen. So there's no point me wasting any energy on things that can't happen or are not possible. I've just got to look forward and think, actually, what can I do to make a bit of money, to look after my family, to be the best I can, and to enjoy what I'm doing, to kind of enjoy my life. Because I think, I'm 53 now, which is scary. Scary as. That is, where the hell did the last 30 years go? I mean, I was a 20-year-old playing in a cup final against Man United, playing for England, loving life, and I look around and I'm 53 and I'm like, damn.
Crazy, isn't it?
Damn, yeah, I went to work for Sky. Yeah, when I came out, I thought, I sort of looked at the options. I wanted to go into management. I applied for about 3 or 4 jobs, but I didn't get one interview, which was. And then I went to work for Sky, and I just, working for Sky covering, and obviously did my coaching, because I had my original coaching badge. When I first got injured, I did my coaching badge, and then I turned that into a UEFA A. That became a B. Changed it to UEFA A, and so I enjoyed coaching. Would have liked to be a manager, but then again, that just never really happened. Enjoying real life. There's so much out there. To do and be involved with that, it's kind of crazy, really.
Definitely. Couple of things you said there, and there were so many parts I wanted to stop you and talk about that, but I'll just try and recap and remember a couple of things. So we were talking about the money side of stuff, obviously from then till now, and I've lost track now. I mean, some players are earning 400, 500 grand a week, maybe in foreign countries. I know that places in China, they were paying astronomical amounts of money.
Yeah.
America, they're now paying a lot of money to ex-top players. I mean, one of the first people that I remember going over there was the David Beckham, going over to LA. I don't know how much he was on, but obviously earning a good amount of money. Thierry Henry, I think, went to Red Bulls or something like that in New York. I actually watched a Wayne Rooney documentary over the weekend on Amazon Prime, which I thought was insane. As far as motivational, inspiring, if you're into sports, specifically football, or even if you want to become an entrepreneur and you need that winner's mindset, watch this documentary. Unbelievable. And I've got going back to what we said earlier, education. When you're exposed to the education, you get to admire and appreciate somebody or that organisation a lot more. And I really appreciate and admire Wayne Rooney a lot more after watching that. But anyway, so they're on serious amount of money now. Okay, even the players that are not really playing so much are on serious amount of money. And again, my position is, I think it's fantastic, because I think that if a 20-year-old, if a 30-year-old, even 40-year-old at back end of their career is earning that amount of money from their craft that they enjoy in another part of the world, good on them. And it inspires me to go on and try and do that for myself.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do think, sometimes giving a young man who's very alpha male, very dominant, very, wants to impress maybe the females or whatever else, or look good on social media, it can become a little bit dangerous, because if you're handing someone 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand a week, and they're not financially educated, they could be a bit of prey for the so-called financial advisors or these schemes and stuff like that. Or it might get to them so much with the pressure of the game, pressure of being fit and not getting injured, pressure of social media, pressure of haters and trolls, pressure of handling all the money, all that combined, sometimes they go pop and they do something quite crazy. So your take on it, like the pressures of being this young footballer coming through all this money, I mean, can there be more education and more support for people when they start being, I don't know, given so much money and also turning into a celebrity, basically?
Yeah, no, absolutely. They can be. And again, I think there should be a pathway. There should be an education. Players should be trained. And I think a lot has to be done and improved on for player care. And as I said, the average length of the career is 8 years. A lot of people don't earn money. We focus on the ones who do. It's a pyramid. And there's very few people at the top earning big money for not very long amounts of time. And we focus on those, but the pyramid gets, big very quickly. And there's a lot of players that don't earn a lot of money, and they need to look after that. So the wealth management has changed because the regulations have changed. So they have to be a lot more transparent. So the lads are looking after their money better. There's better education on property, better education on investing your money and what you can invest in and looking after it and keeping it, which is brilliant, which has worked well. But I don't think the game as a whole, especially the PFA, do enough for player education to make sure they're looked after. So you're very reliant on your agent, you're very reliant on your family, very reliant on who you have around you.
Your circle, yeah.
To look after it. So, very much so with your contracts and what you sign and what you spend your money on. Lads have got to be careful of, let's say, being preyed on, making sure you marry the right person. You don't really get into gambling. I'm a bit worried that, the lads spend a lot of money on gambling. but the pressures now are incredible, and I think there's limited ways for them to have a release. You see Jack Grealish and Walker and Foden go out for a drink, go and have a beer. They're all over, the papers, all over social media. Phil Foden coming out of a concert, the Khan fight.
Brook fight, yeah.
Yeah, the Khan Brook fight. And, downstairs he gets started on by some fans. His mum ends up getting smacked. There's a punch up, people are filming it. It's disgusting. And these young kids, so much pressure. And I was talking to Gareth Southgate about that. And it's the one big thing that he was saying is these kids have got so much pressure on their shoulders. Your Sterlings, your Grealish, your Fodens. Yes, they're earning big money, but, they're in a goldfish bowl, and they really, you're really reliant on having good, solid family around you and being strong mentally, because, you will find you have some that fall down and struggle and get into drink and maybe, drugs and just, it's gambling and just lose the plot. And it's very difficult just for most normal careers, but for the big ones, there is a lot of pressure. There is a lot of pressure, and they have to deal with that, and they need help. But there's a lot of psychological help as well. The mental health situation is massive, but the ones I feel for, and I said about the strength in that dressing room, it's ruthless. Yeah. It's cutthroat, and people just can't cope, and you just don't end up making it. And really, the ones that do are the strong ones, and that's that. I'll talk about 1%, 2%, and a lot of the boys, now. Have a lot of, you can go and get help. You can go and get your own people and talk to people and make sure that you know what you're doing and the right people around you. You're going to keep your money and look after it. So there is a lot of conversations, a lot being done in that pathway, just because, wealth managers want to earn their money. And if you can get your clients, you can look after it. So, it is a minefield, and it is a nightmare. But no one cares. I mean, I always think there's this massive thing about, you have a shirt, you play, and if you're out there, you're visible. If you're not, you're gone. Where'd you go? What happens? They just disappear off the planet. No one cares. So no one really cares about you. No one's going to look after you. None of the clubs are going to go, "You're all right. Are you okay? You're right for everything." See guys that played 100 times for their countries, can't pay their gas bill. They're struggling mentally. I was with Kenny Sampson the other day, gambling, drink addictions, he's really struggling. I don't know how he's surviving, but someone rallied around him. I'd like to think the game might look after him. 86 England caps, played for Arsenal, Palace. It's just, where, you know what I mean? There's no safety net. There is no help. And it's quite sad. So you play. You have your minutes fame, and then you're out there. So you do need to be strong, and a lot of the lads do struggle, unfortunately, and they need more help from the game, certainly.
I think in today's age, the pressure of performing as an athlete, that's astronomical amount of pressure. Obviously, getting it from the club, your teammates, your peers, your friends, fans, etc. Obviously, the money, people are going to talk about it all the time. Whether you're for it or against it, people are going to talk about it. Headlines all the time. Whenever a footballer does something wrong, it starts with, footballers on 200 grand a week has done this. And it tries to stir the emotion of the public. I have debates with my father-in-law all the time. Obviously, my wife's dad. He's like, yeah, well, on that amount of money, you should be. And I said, but at the end of the day, you're still human. And he always draws this comparison between footballers and the NHS, and I said, okay, what's your comparison? He said, well, they go and save people's lives, and I said, I get that. You're comparing apples and oranges, two different industries, and also you've got to look up the probability. If I hung up my gloves today in the art world and said, right, I want to become a nurse in the NHS, the equivalent or whatever, I reckon with a bit of training, because I'm not half, got a brain on me, I reckon I could go and do it. This process it might take me a bit of time, but eventually I might get there and I could start getting paid in the NHS. I'm not trying to knock what they're doing. I'm just saying that skill set can be probably taught to so many more people, because it's a skill set that it needs to be easily learned, because they need to go and save more people's lives. Okay, so it's a good thing. But if someone said to me, right, hang out your gloves today, you got 1 year to become a Premiership footballer, there is no chance in hell. I'm fit, I'm a boxer, I can run, But as far as kicking the ball and scoring and defending, probably not. I probably won't be. And that's part of the reason why they get paid so much money, because there's not a lot of people on the face of the planet can do what they can do. And coining what you just said, someone must see the value in what they're doing in order to pay them, okay? But anyway, with all that being said, then on top of that, the pressure is social media. Yeah. Back in your day, and when I was younger, there was no YouTube, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, there was no podcast. And that is good and bad. But I think the downside to it now, especially with high profile player, let's call it Ronaldo, he just hit over 400 million followers on social media.
400 million?
400 million. Allegedly, I read that he can charge £1 million or dollars for one post on social media because he's got such a big following, which again, great. I think he's an elite athlete. I think he's a total winner. And I actually get so inspired seeing that. There is a downside to it, which is the moment you put a foot wrong, you let a goal in, you tackle someone bad, or you do something in your private life, you might have a swearing match with some stranger or a fan kicks off with your mum, for example, and then you're trying to defend her. Suddenly they're recording it and you're on social media, and then you get the haters and trolls saying stuff at you. Yeah. What sort of pressures? Like how do you take social media yourself now? I know you're not so much on it, but as someone who's a bit of a fan for football as well, you look at it and think, Jesus, if I was one of these footballers now, how would I deal with the pressures of social media?
I think that I'll just quickly say about the NHS thing. I mean, the one thing I will say about footballers is people have to remember that footballers pay 40% tax. So they put a lot of money back into the system, and especially the NHS. And people, there's a lot of people claiming benefits and asking a lot of the system. Whereas footballers pay 40% tax and they don't ask anything. So they've got private medical care, the kids go to private schools. So they create a lot of jobs and they create a lot of happiness. So I think when people look at footballers and think, if someone's on 100 grand a week, that's 40 grand of that is going into the public purses, by the way. So that's roads, that's hospitals, that's schools. So, in a case of what are people giving back, from that sense, footballers are giving quite a lot.
Solid point.
Yeah, so they're giving a lot. So, but the social media thing is just incredible. It's just it's disgusting. I hate it. I wish it wasn't there. It's just so poisonous. It's a real poisonous platform, but it's something that, and I really feel sorry for our kids.
I was going to say,
and we talk about, but you sort of talk about footballers. You've got to be strong enough to deal with it. They're earning money. They've got to get on with it, and you justify it. But for our kids now, it's all about this peer pressure, this social pressure, this, what they're looking at and how they speak to each other. I mean, I hate Twitter, and I don't really want to be on there. I don't really want to go on Instagram. I don't really want to post about me. But do you know what I mean? You sort of get these comments like, you've got to be relevant. If you're not relevant, then you're no one. And, and it's kind of like a bit of a catch-22 where I want to enjoy the game. I don't really want to post things about Liverpool, Chelsea. I don't. And then you get involved with politics is the worst one. If you've got any kind of views, if you say anything about a team or you say something about someone, if you have an opinion, people are just haters. They just get on you, and it is disgusting. It does affect you, and you get to the point where I think for most people, you just think, I don't want to be on this platform. I don't want this. I don't want this for my kids. I don't want this to be our lives. There's a lot of positives with it, but it's so many negatives. So it's really quite sad. And I think something's got to change. I think now we're all going, a lot of people have seen it. You go to Instagram. Instagram's just nice. You post a nice story. I'm doing this. Where am I? What am I doing? How am I doing it? Is it funny? TikTok's great. You're doing a funny dance. You're doing something. You're putting something interesting. And that's great. So those kind of platforms are fantastic. But it's just, I think the end of Twitter's coming because it's just a poisonous platform that, everyone sort of, it started being nicey, but it's just it's a big mouthpiece for people that shouldn't have one, and shouldn't be allowed to have one, basically. So it is a weird one, but it is what we are. And technology is just moving at such a fast pace. I was thinking when I was 20-year-old, I remember getting that first Nokia Motorola, and it was just, having a nice phone. And then you got, laptops, getting, sort of quite... And then you look at technology now, and people used to say to me, you're going to have a phone that's going to be your laptop. It's going to open you. It's going to have eye recognition, voice recognition. It's going to be everything. It's going to be your computer. It's going to be your keys. It's going to be your wallet. You're going to pay. And you're like, no way. No, that's, just not possible. Do you remember when I grew up, you had Buck Rogers and it was set in the year 2025. And we used to, oh my God, this is the future, you know, Star Wars. And we're 2022. And, you know, it's crazy. And you look at the technology now, just moving so fast. And because technology is creating technology, it's out of our hand. And we're talking about, kids are talking about Bitcoins and Ethereum and
Metaverse.
And metaverses and NFTs. And I'm like, you know, it does make my head hurt because it's nuts. And I think the world's moving too fast. And I think, especially technology, kids are growing up too quick. And we've gone away from sort of community spirit, you know, sort of family values, you know, marriage, I don't know where, you know, it's just weird. The world's a weird place now that every time, and I know I'm getting old when I'm saying that, because that's what old people do. They moan about the youngsters and go, when I was a kid, you know, when I was growing up. In my day. And it's sad, but that's where I am now. I'm sort of beginning to go, in my day, you know, the kids didn't know they're born. They got no respect. They got no, you know, the drugs thing. It's just, you know, everything's out of control, you know. I just, you know, so, but there is a lot of lovely stuff. I mean, we've gone out of, you know, in a pandemic. How crazy was that? Straight into a war. I don't know where this war is going to go. So, you know, it's kind of nuts. But, you know, through it all, we've just got to keep believing. And I think just doing the best we can in our little bubble, in your own little family, your own little ways. You know, if you're kind, you're courteous, you're respectful, and you do your little bit, I think that's what we can do, and that's what we should be doing. So I think for a large part, the lads are great. You know, if you look at 95% of the lads are good lads. They're good, solid people, good families, you know, and they deserve what they get. You're going to get, obviously, there's been a lot of bad headlines following footballers, you know, obviously Zuma, you know, Greek Greenwood. I was going to say that cat charity, 500 grand, 2 weeks' wages, like 200, no, is it? Yeah, 125 grand a week, so 250 grand for kicking a cat, 2 weeks' wages. That's, you know, but it's crazy. I don't even know when that happened, but you know how that gets posted and how that happens. But I mean, so disgusting. It's like, how can you behave like that? Let alone film it and post it. And then obviously we've got Mason Greenwood, you've got Ryan Giggs. You know, there's so many horrible stories that just don't go away. You know, the press love it. I mean, they do want car crash. They love the war. They love the pandemic. They love these stories that they want to, but it reflects so badly on football as a whole. But when you actually look at it, you know, 98% of the lads are good lads. You know, do a lot for charity, do a lot for their clubs, care about their community, and deserve everything they get, you know, for what they do. But you know, you can't wait to churn out these headlines. It just gives football and footballers a really bad name. So, I mean, you do worry for them. I think there should be more education between that. You know, like, you know, in America, you have to go and get a degree. You know what I mean? You go to college and you have to learn, and you have to get through that, and then you get your contract at 21. You know, whereas our kids come through and, you know, they're on this treadmill from when they're 8, 9, 10. You know, live in a bubble, don't really know how the real world works, you know. And then they get, you know, they're sort of surrounded by agents telling, you know, so they're very limited in their education. Because I think the cricketers, the rugby players, and everyone else, even the, you know, get a better life education, better life lessons. So that's the only thing I would try and change is, and obviously it's that big elephant in the room of so many players are taken on and then discarded and just they're broken and left with nothing really. So there should be education. There should be a conveyor, you know, players when they get to like that 31, 32, 33 should be encouraged to start doing education. So you can go and be a lawyer, you can go and be an accountant, you can become a chief exec, you can go and be a director of football. Because I am really worried, and the biggest disgrace is footballers don't work within football. So how many footballers at the FA? Yeah. How many footballers at the Premier League? How many footballers work in the Football League? I don't know any. I honestly don't know any. I know there's some in the PFA. There's beginning, maybe one or two, but there should be
everyone.
There should be a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think the German FA, I think it's 50-60% ex-footballers work in the you know, I look at Spain, I look at Portugal, I look at France. You've got Platini running UEFA. Where we had Sir Trevor Brookett. Why aren't footballers working in football? It's you know, it's crazy really, but you know, it's a big machine. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of changes need to be made. It's why are there enough black coaches? Why aren't there enough black managers? Why aren't there, to represent the same, demographic of players? The amount of players. It's not, and the people that are allowed to buy football clubs and run. It's all. There's a lot of things that are really quite fundamentally wrong with football and the way it works, but. It is, we just love it. It's brilliant. And when you're watching that Liverpool-Chelsea Cup final yesterday, it's just incredible. You forget about the war, you forget about the world, and you're watching that, and it's phenomenal entertainment. And everyone around the world will just be loving that, and it was brilliant. And that's what we love, and it captures the heart. Football touches people like no other sport for me, but sport is so. Boxing's massive now. Boxing. The Brook Khan fight was just incredible, and obviously when the big boys fight and the heavyweights, it's brilliant. But the sport's never been more relevant, more important, more, but it's social media. It's the coverage. The coverage is incredible. You're looking at it and think about it 24/7. People are at their desk, getting their fantasy teams and looking at the news, and it's, what's happening in the world of tennis, what's happening in the world of. Boxing, horse racing, football, rugby, cricket. The IPL's just about to start. Sport has never been so prominent and so huge, which is great.
Just brings a lot of unity, people together. I think it's very, very healthy, regardless whether it's the tennis, football, boxing, whatever. I just think it's healthy to come together like that. Going back to the social media aspect of stuff, I think it's a bit of a catch-22 now for players. It's almost like. Don't be on it because you're going to get distracted. But if you don't be on it, you're not going to become relevant or it's not stay relevant. And also, it's a bit of a business now. So the Reeboks, the Adidas, the Nike, whoever you're going to get endorsed by, personally as a player, are probably going to go after your social media. How you look, how you're coming across, the message that you're portraying to a demographic that you're trying to appeal to. I think that really, really is important. And I think it does come down to, and this is what I'm going to tell my two young sons, one's 3 and one's 6 months tomorrow. I'm going to say to them, even though it's tough, but keep and remind them, use social media, don't let it use you. Because the moment it starts using you, that's when the fear, anxiety, depression, comparing yourself to other people, that's when it sets in. So that's the one thing I want to say about it. So, being famous today in football is very different to what it was when you become a professional footballer. But nonetheless, you're still famous back then. So I want to ask you a couple of things. What was it like when people started noticing you for being a footballer, being on TV, scoring goals, etc.? But also the downside to it back then, the tabloids, the Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Mail, whatever, would write about your team, write about maybe you making a mistake in your personal or public life. So tell me, what was it like becoming known and famous, and what was the worst article ever written about you?
Yeah, crazy as. It was stark, really. Obviously, when I came through at Palace, playing in a cup final, semi-final at Villa Park, Liverpool's final, United. That was massive because there was 150 million people around the world, and it was quite weird because after the cup final that season we went on a tour of the West Indies, and you'd be in Jamaica and people would be recognising you. People, I saw you in the cup final. It was kind of crazy. So around the world, but the biggest change definitely was playing for England. When I pulled on that England shirt, the visibility and the recognising just went through the roof. It was like 100-fold. Pull up at a set of lights, be like, oh my God, it was like, people recognised you everywhere because England is just so big. Everyone looks at England. So that was incredible. And it is weird because, fame doesn't exist. You got to keep your feet on the ground because you're not really anyone else. But I think you do need to stay humble. You do need to stay respectful. And fame's just something that's here today. And it is something that I think you just got to get a grip of, and you've got to understand that, it's really nice that people do recognise you and be grateful they do. It can be a bit of a pain when it gets too much. And I think I say lucky, I didn't really have it too bad because I wasn't up at that level for too long. But obviously once you get to a certain level of fame, it's unbearable, and you have to be careful where you go, how you go. Because you can't have 100 people getting your autograph. You go to cinema and you're getting pestered. You just go to a restaurant. You can't just live your life. So I feel sorry for the lads now, whereas they can't just really disappear. London's great. because there's lots of little, and no one really cares in London. That's why everyone comes to London. They see stars all the time. So it's like, oh, there's Woody Harrelson over there. It's Tom Cruise. Oh, great. You know, they don't, oh, I'll go and get his autograph because he takes home £2 million as a broker. You know, he's like, you know, people are doing okay for themselves and they see stars all the time. So it is brilliant. But yeah, I mean, fame's crazy. I did get myself in the news of the world. And that's what they used to do. You know, they'd target you. You know, people would try and lure you into situations that they could exploit. And, you know, they'd sell their stories.
Well, they
obviously back then, yeah, so someone did sell their story.
What was it?
Double page spread with a girl.
Oh, right.
I think that the headline was "Footballer shagged me on bonnet of his Mercedes" was the headline. So that was pretty horrific, as I was sort of married and had kids at the time. Yeah, that was never forgotten. So, you know, you sort of, it's a crazy, crazy situation that I got myself into, something I shouldn't have done. And they exploited it and made it more than it actually was. But it's sensations themselves, you know. And that headline's never forgotten. And, you know, you got yourself into something. So, you know, those kind of things don't bode well. I think when you're young, successful, you got money, and you can be a bit of an arse and get yourself into things that don't help you. And that's why a lot of the lads do end up divorced. You know, it's a sweetie shop for the boys, really, a little bit. There's a lot of you know, there's a lot of opportunity to be led astray a little bit, and unfortunately, you know, it happens, and that's why, you know, it's a difficult situation and does cause a lot of problems, and ultimately, I think with those situations, maybe, you know, the pressure, the drink, drugs, whatever it is, it can happen. Depression. You know, a lot of lads do end up divorced, but, you know, you come round and you know, you get on with your life, and you almost sort of live a second life, really, where you live, you learn, and you grow. You know, you make mistakes and you learn from them, and you try and live that second life a lot better than you did the first one. And to be fair, fame, money, and all the things that come, and all the trappings that come with football are not easy to deal with. They're not easy, and it's easy to make mistakes, and they're often costly.
Wayne Rooney said in his documentary, he touched on this very point. He said, well, yeah, of course I'm going to slip up in my life. That's part of growing up, and that's part of becoming more mature, and that's part of just going through different experiences and different chapters in your life. Again, if I were to answer honestly, have I fucked up? So many times. If I were to ask anyone in this building, have you fucked up? So many times. Anyone in the street, so many times. What's the difference? The difference is when you're a high profile person, footballer, celebrity, etc., you've got cameras following you around pretty much all the time. Even when you think they're not watching, they are, especially with social media. I've told this story many times where Jack Fincham, who was on Love Island, who won it, he came here to do a podcast, and we actually done an exercise live on the podcast. So I met him over in Piccadilly, walked over here, we'd done the podcast. He said, look, went onto his DMs, and someone said, like, wearing that today with your Chelsea boots and them jeans, you look awful, you look like trash. And he said, I didn't even know that person was looking at me, but sent me a message to say I look like a load of rubbish. And he said, that's the point. You don't know you're being followed when you become a high profile person. Yeah. And Wayne Rooney said, if you were being followed since you're 14 years of age with cameras, and they picked up on every single mistake that you went through, of course, you know, it's going to look bad. But if you have no cameras, then people are not going to know about your problems. No.
And that's why, yeah, that's the thing. I think if you ask me, I'd love to be wealthy but not famous. I think the fame game is shocking. It's horrible. Yeah. I don't. A lot of lads don't want the fame, don't covet the fame, don't enjoy the fame, and there's not a lot of real pluses to it. But it comes with, you know, the job. Yeah. Comes with the fact that you are a player, and again, it's a working man's game. So people do recognise you do need to sign their autographs, spend some time talking to them, and be as humble as you can, because at the end of the day, you'll get that. We pay your wages. You know, it is. You know, you enjoy the fans, but you want that in return. You do want the fans to be respectful and understand the position you're in, and that's why players are just a little bit more detached now. Have to be separate, because they just don't know what they're going to get into and how they're going to be treated, and people are there to abuse it. There's a lot of haters out there, and situations can get out of hand. But hey, you can't knock it. It is the way it is. It's the job. You take the rewards, and you've got to take the fact that you've got to give, and it's life. For what you take, you got to give, and certainly you try to make it as smooth and as nice as possible. It's enjoyable. It's a very enjoyable ride.
I only want to ask you one or two more things, because I know you're going to be probably very, very busy today. So you mentioned earlier just something I picked up on, and it's something I've picked up on with a lot of athletes. I've had David Cotterill on my podcast, Anton Ferdinand, Kieran Richardson, O'Hara Davis, George Groves was just on last week. I mean, being a boxer myself, I've got access to quite a lot of boxers specifically, and then some of them have led me to other athletes like footballers, etc. And I know you said about your own podcast, Pubcast. And you mentioned about interviewing some very successful athletes that have gone on to be even more successful, and some maybe not so much. And they're both really interesting conversations, because they're both it's both content that you can learn from as a viewer. And when people get injured, when they get hit by the press, when they get attacked by social media, when their career comes to an end, where you've actually had all of them, bar probably attacked on social media, drinking, drugs, depression, anxiety, fear, feeling that you're not good enough. You mentioned about maybe when you hurt your knee, like injured your knee, going onto the bottle, maybe having cigarettes. Did that ever become a thing, or can you see how people have gone down that road? And how have you kept yourself sane? And because you come across like a real, genuine, nice guy who has got your feet firmly on the ground. So how do you kind of persevere them dark days?
Yeah, you just got to be positive, and as you know, you've got to have drive, you've got to have purpose. I think you've got to have interest in things. I think you've got to work hard. And for me, I always find working out, maybe doing something physical, like, signing up for London to Paris with Jeff Thomas, London to Paris. So you got to train, you got to live right, you got something positive to look forward to. Sign up for the marathon, sign up for half marathon, have something in your life, sign up for a boxing fight, and train for that, and have that focus and drive. It always, the physical training works for me. I love playing golf because mentally it is, the focus and the desire to win, and then you need to practice and then go out there and play. So I love those challenges, and I always found it, so doing something sporting, getting in the gym, training for something always focuses the mind. And it's absolutely, even I think you need that more after you stop playing, after you don't have that buzz. But yeah, we all have, that bit of depression, bit of anxiety, just that you can have those clouds do come over you. I've been very lucky never to really have gone down taking any drugs. Having the odd Marlboro Light here and there, is about as much. But, drinking can get out of hand. Can start drinking every day, getting on, and you've got to curb that. You sort of start with, over Christmas, and then January you do a dry Jan, and try and break those cycles of, I'm just going to have, 4 or 5 weeks off it, because it's easy to say, I can control it, I can give up whenever I want. Well, you can't. Well, prove it to yourself. You do. Those mental challenges are very important to say, do you know what, I'm not going to drink for this month. It's very easy. I've got my birthday, I've got that. It's always excuses of why you can't do it, but you're like, I could give up if I wanted. Yeah, right, okay. I don't gamble. I don't, which is an addiction. It's sad, really, because I think for a lot of people, it's very hard to replicate and crack on after you stop playing. Yeah. As difficult as it is. But again, that's something that should be addressed. People need help with that. It's very easy to just go down the wrong path and get involved with the wrong things, the wrong people. So you need that drive, set up that company, go and do something, get out. And, the media, I went into Sky. So working for Sky was very important, because you're still sort of prominent, but you've got a job to do, so you still got to watch it. You've got to know what you're talking about. You're still doing live pieces to camera, getting in the studio was a big buzz. I loved that, loved doing more for Sky, doing a bit of talk sport, so keeping yourself active. And part of that is being on social media. I realised that. So if I do want to do TV stuff, you got to keep relevant. You got to try and I don't like doing the social media, but you do it because I might say something on Twitter that TalkSport might go, oh, do you know what I mean? We'll ask John about that. If something happens, I will ask John. If you're forgotten about, they don't go, Sky, can you come and do the African Cup of Nations? You might jog their memory somewhere. Some producer go, John Salako, because you're easily forgotten. You are so easily forgotten. Oh, where's he? You talk about somebody, go, oh my God, yeah, remember him? Where's he now? What's he doing? It's like, who cares? But no one really cares. I think that's one of the biggest things that I know is that, in all honesty, no one cares. So you got to look after yourself, and you got to have friends, you got to have family, and look after that, and they'll look after you. And a lot of people who say things don't care about you, so don't bother with what they're saying, because the people who don't care say all kinds of crap about you. You don't need to listen. The important people will never, say bad things, and they'll always be there for you. So your friends and your family, keep them tight, look after those, and then they can't hurt you. They're your shields. They're your armor. Definitely. They're your armor, and that keeps you sane. Having those people.
So working at TalkSport, Sky Sports, obviously people are seeing you on there still now. You've mentioned to me a few other projects that you got lined up, podcast potentially turning into a show, and there's a few other things. What can we expect to see from you? What goals, ambitions have you got? Because look, you said about you're in your 50s, you're looking very young still. You're looking very active. You mentioned to me out there, I'm going to stick it on you a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe doing a boxing match.
I'd love to. I'd love to train and do and have a little tear up. The only thing is, I think I won't stop there. No, but do you know what? I think it's very important to be very positive and have a drive. And as I said to you, I think it's important to have dreams and ambitions and goals.
And what are they for you?
And really, as I said, I can't believe I'm 53, but I'm thinking I'd still love. I still think I've got the passion, the knowledge, and the ability to do TV. I'd love to get back on one. Do more with Sky. Whoever it is, BT, cover football. I just love football. It's in my blood. So I'd like to do more of that. I'm involved in a few other things, sort of like my property, and I'm getting into NFTs, the next big thing. And I'm really excited about an exciting project with a trading platform called All Stars Traders, which turns footballers or sports stars into shares. So it's like fantasy football means share trading, and they're footballers. Great. Yeah. So I'm working with those guys. That's fantastic. And there's a All Stars Trader digital side, which is going to be in around doing NFTs of sporting stars, so legends, icons, that sort of thing. So it's really exciting. I mean, it's blowing my mind when you start talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, Ethereum. You sort of talk about metaverses and people, but it's huge. It's huge. I think the NFT market went through the £4 billion mark. When people talk about it and the possibilities, and again, it's growing and learning. The kids will all love this stuff. I didn't know about it till 6 months ago, and someone don't know. How did I not know about this? This is there, and I'm sort of getting excited about doing it, and sort of just getting my teeth into stuff. And obviously, you want to sort of. You've got to earn your corn. We all want to make a few quid. As I say, I think the wonderful thing about money is it buys you time and it gives you options. But you want to do things that are interesting and that keep you on your toes and keep
you stimulated.
Keep you stimulated, getting out of the house every day. Because I think if you start, sitting in the house too long, and you start wallowing and start. Then the clouds come over. So you do need to keep yourself motivated and excited, and stimulated is a great word, by doing interesting things and keeping involved, and so it's exciting times. I'm looking forward to the next challenges in the next few years, and good.
Well, I've got to say, John, you've been a great guest, mate. You come across so natural when you talk as well. Maybe it might be all those years, doing it on Sky and TalkSport, etc. You're very easy to listen to, so thank you very much. I'll ask you one more question. When I started my own brand, my own company, when I was 24 years of age, I was very wet behind the ears. I went, set up a company, and I just went gung-ho into it. And I remember I just thought to myself, I need to keep everybody upbeat, because all the people I mostly had working for me at the time were salespeople. And I thought to myself, right, how can I come up with a slogan and mantra for them to live by day to day, where they keep on pushing on, keep on getting good sales, keep them positive and keep them motivated? And this is the slogan. It goes like this: be happy, never content. So if I were to ask you, John, be happy, never content, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's liking yourself. I think it's making sure that you're good and you're doing things that you enjoy doing and you got good people around you. But you keep pushing. You keep pushing and asking a little bit more of yourself. I think, there's always more in the tank. What more can I do? How much better can I be? For me, I think it's just trying to be the best person I can every day, trying to push, be the best father I can be, best brother. And I can always be a better son, just simple things. I need to see more of my mum, spend more time with my brothers and my family, my sister, and really try and make sure that I give my kids the best, grounding and opportunities I can for them. So, it's just keeping things simple, but it's get up. I think you get up early and try and work hard and be the best you can and keep pushing.
That's great stuff, John. Thank you very much for your time. If you enjoyed this, please give John a follow. Please follow his journey. He's got some great stuff in the pipeline. If you like my podcast, subscribe, like, share it, all that good stuff. And remember to be happy, never content. Thank you very much, John.
Pleasure. I forgot I'm writing the book as well, so look out for that.
All right, lovely stuff.